I walked into the room and let out a sigh. Today was tough, and I could tell it was only going to be much tougher later in the week. I felt my feet slide across the floor in exhaustion, not used to the strenuous work I had to do. I sat down on the bench in front of the fireplace, staring into the flames as I let relaxation finally hit my body. The warmth of the fire gave me a dull sense of calm, causing me to sigh and lean back against the bench.
You have done well, child.
Oh yay, more crazy voices in my head. Huh? You again?
Fear not. I come to observe you as you observe me.
I tilted my head, confused as to what the voice meant. I looked around and scoured the room before turning my gaze back to the fire. Within it, I could barely make out the outline of eyes, which caused me to freeze in my spot. What the hell? You're the fire?
I am a flame, but I am not the fire you gaze upon. I merely look through it to judge you, and the one named Maurice.
You're judging us? Why? For what?
That will be known soon. When the time is right, the one destined to take my power will be tested.
I stared into the fire, lost and confused. Why were we being judged? Was this some sort of trick by the Demon Lord? As I thought of that, the flames intensified slightly.
The Demon Lord, an evil being of this world. He is a curse plaguing this land.
You hate the Demon Lord as well?
He is not worthy of life, but I care not enough to rise from the darkness to rid the world of him myself.
What do you mean?
I have been generous with you, child. You must now be patient.
Alright, Mr. Creepy Fireplace Dude, who talks in my head and makes me seem insane. I will wait. Before I could even think to protest, the eyes hidden within the flames vanished and the voice disappeared from my mind, as if it were part of a dream I had awoken from. I shook my head and rubbed my... That's right. I forgot about that. I shook my head and rubbed my head, taking it in. Some sort of spirit or guardian was watching over us. Apparently, it seemed to be strong enough to defeat the Demon Lord himself. Was it possible? Even more so, it was going to test one of us to take its power? My mind instantly went to Sam. There was no reason for me to be the one to be tested, so it had to be him. How would he be tested, though? I shook my head. This was way too confusing to think about right now. However, as I sat back and let my mind reorganize itself, I suddenly realized something. Where was Sam? I stood and walked to the door, opening it and peeking out into the hall. Sam was nowhere in sight. What the? Sam was really late in coming back. From what we had discussed, he should have been back or at least on the way. However, the distance to their training area was not that far. I began to wander the halls, trying to find where they were. Luckily, Sam made a lot of noise.
Fuck you!
Yep, that sounds about right. Sam? I rushed towards the noise, stopping at an open door. Peering in, I gasped as I saw the war room in disarray as everyone seemed to hug the walls, watching the chaos that was breaking into the middle of the room. Sam and Sato were clashing sword to spear, with Sam's face full of rage and Sato's expression void of any emotion.
You're too slow! Faster! You want me to go faster? Fine!
Before my eyes, Sam and Sato became barely visible shadows through the air. Their weapons clanged rapidly, almost like multiple bullets crashing at once as they arched toward one another. Arced towards one another? Oh. What is going on? The incubi and the wives moved toward the door to join me, still watching the fight.
Sam was about to leave for the night, but then that jerk-ass Sero called him a weak coward. Well, you know how Sam is. He did actually try to walk away, but then Sero said that the war was his fault, so that got this whole shitstorm started. They've been at it ever since.
The hell? I looked back to Seto and Sam, still unable to make either of them out as they clashed and fought. My eyes locked on Diana, seeing her leaning against the far wall with crossed arms. As I examined her, her eyes seemed to follow the fight almost masterfully. Was she able to see what the hell was happening, despite their lightning speed? Why was she just watching anyway? Sam, stop it!
Keep at it, Seto. Don't let him stop.
What the hell? I ran over to Diana, despite her not taking her eyes off the fight. Why aren't we stopping this, Diana? Wait and watch. I still wasn't understanding. Why was I not getting any... I still wasn't understanding. Why was I not getting any answer? I turned my gaze to the fight, desperate to try and see what Diana wanted me to witness.
Are you that weak, Incubus? You haven't landed a blow on me once! Shut your fucking mouth! Like father, like son!
I didn't understand why Seto was egging him on and insulting him, but Sam seemed up for the battle regardless of the fact, using the insults as inspirational rage. However, from the faint outline of Sam that I could see, I noticed something off about him. He was surrounded by a heavy green and red mixed aura. The more I watched, the more the aura seemed to build and take shape around Sam's body. I couldn't tell what it was, but it looked almost alive.
Enough!
At once, Sam and Seto slid to opposite sides of the open space, panting and gasping for air. Around Seto was a faint white light that was diminishing with each breath he took. I know it's late. Around Sam, however, was a clear view of a tense red and green aura. It seemed to flicker around Sam like flames, but it didn't seem to die even with the battle being over.
What the hell?
What is that?
Seto.
Diana pushed off the wall and walked to Seto, wrapping an arm around his and making him gasp at the gesture. He looked at her in shock as she turned to Sam with a hard gaze.
It would seem that we have much to do before the siege.
What are you talking about? Diana seemed to ignore my question as she turned and began to walk towards the room's exit with Seto in her arm. Sam, on the other hand, dropped to the floor and sat back against the wall, trying to calm down. Instinctively, I rushed over to him. Sam shut his eyes as he forced himself to take deep breaths. Each one seemed less labored than the last, but I could tell that he was working to calm his rage. Sam? The aura around Sam finally seemed to die down before Sam let out a heavy sigh and pressed his head back against the wall. I could tell that exhaustion was weighing on him heavily, so I simply sat beside him, waiting.
Sam, what is going on?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Sam, you had a weird aura around you.
I said I don't know!
Sam closed his eyes and pressed his back against the wall, letting his head drop to his chest. He generally didn't seem to know what was going on, but I became concerned. Why was his aura so strange? My thoughts ran to the voice from the flame. Was this part of the start? Aha. My thoughts ran to the voice from the flame. Was this the start of whatever test he had in mind? Why were Diana and Seto involved, though? Sam finally opened his eyes and looked to me. His irises flashed gold at the sight of me, but quickly returned to emerald green as he let out a sigh. Wait patiently. I knew Sam well enough not to pester him and to let him settle down. As he stared, he reached a hand up and gently ruffled my hair.
Sorry you had to see that.
I shook my head and held his hand, kissing his palm. As I did, Sam chuckled and stood, ushering me to stand alongside him. Sam gently took my hand and walked to lead me out of the room.
Hey, hold on!
Shut up, Squirt!
Squirt! What the hell?
Matthew, hey, chill!
I looked back to see Norin and Damien holding Matthew back from pouncing at Sam, but I continued with Sam out of the room. As we walked down the hall, I looked to Sam, seeing the exhaustion in his eyes grow heavier and heavier. He had used a lot of energy. I wrapped my arm around him and guided him back to our room, sitting in bed and eventually flopping back onto it with me. As he let out a relaxed grunt, I kissed his cheek. Everything okay?
Yeah. Just exhausted. Man, fuck that guard.
It's like saying, fuck that guy. I smiled and hugged him, ushering him to wrap his arms around me and kiss my forehead.
Something really has been weird, though.
I agree. Both of us went silent as we became lost in thought. I knew Sam was trying to determine what happened, but I was concerned over what the voice in the flame said and how that reflected on Sam. The nightmare I had made a little more sense, but why was I involved? Sam and I went to bed that night, both unsure of what was going on and mildly fearful of what was happening. We wouldn't speak about it without knowing all of the pieces. We both knew better than to take stabs in the dark. My night was uneventful, but my morning wasn't the same. Aha, this is what we get. Tell Sam the truth. I didn't expect to wake up with a hand over my mouth, with an arm tight around my waist. I tried to focus my vision, but as the sensation of my situation set in, I gasped and struggled to see who was keeping me captive.
Quiet.
I stared wide-eyed, seeing Cero staring straight ahead of us as he kept my mouth shut and held me against him with his other arm. What was even stranger was that he was using his holy magic, disabling me to use any of my energy to fight back. What the hell? I looked ahead of us to see a sight I never wanted to see. Diana straddling over Sam's waist as he slept, looking down at him with pure concentration. What was she doing now? Did this have something to do with what happened last night?
Patience, child.
I froze at the sound of the voice in my head. The voice was in on this act too?
She's merely following instructions. No harm will come to him.
Guess I'll be patient. This was another test, another trial Sam had to go through. What kind of elaborate scheme was this? Looking at Diana, however, I could tell that she didn't want to do whatever the voice had instructed. Her lips were curved into an almost disgusted grimace as she looked down at Sam. Diana let out a small sigh before pressing her index finger into the top of her head and dragging it down her face, between her eyes, and all the way down to her crotch. What the? The line that formed on Diana's skin seemed to grow and envelop her body in a strange purple light, changing her skin and almost shrinking her form. Whoops! I hit that too fast again. Diana's new body was my own, only without clothes. Every curve, every crevice of her body matched mine, and even the voice that came out of her mouth perfectly mirrored my own. Sam, wake up. I felt nauseous watching her run her fingers along Sam's hair, just like I would. How the hell did she know anything about how Sam and I interacted intimately? This was creepy and gross, and I felt myself naturally struggle against Cero to be free. Sam's eyes fluttered open and adjusted to the sight of the me straddling over his hips. As Diana gave him my perfect smile, I mentally panicked. What was he going to do? Would he fall for this? No way. There was no way. Sam's eyes trailed up and down Diana's body, just like how he would with me whenever he saw me without clothes. My heart was breaking a bit at the sight.
Get the fuck off me.
Wait, what? I gasped as Sam suddenly sat up, gripping Diana's neck, and began to squeeze. Instinctively, Cero tightened his hold on me, most likely struggling to obey previous commands to stay put.
What the fuck do you think you're doing, bitch?
Sam, stop. He knows it's not me, though. A large part of me felt relieved that Sam could see whatever illusion Diana threw on herself. The smaller part of me began to fear Diana's neck being snapped because of it. She continued to act like me to perfection as she gripped Sam's wrists. It was mildly scary to see Sam holding Diana, who looked like a copycat of me. In a strange, messed up way, it was like watching a movie where I was a character in the scene watching the man I loved act with the actress playing me. The more I watched Sam crush Diana's neck, the more I could imagine him doing that to me, which made me fearful. He would never hurt me, but to see it happening to someone who looked and acted like me was another thing.
If this is some kind of fucked up joke to you, I will end you right now!
Diana began to cry, almost likely losing air from Sam's death choke on her. As she coughed, her body began to quake from lack of oxygen. Please, Sam, it's me!
Shut the fuck up!
Sam released a hand from Diana's neck and pushed it into her stomach, lifting her off of him and shoving her off his lap and against the far wall. Diana crumpled against the floor, curling herself over as she coughed violently and shook from the pain that obviously racked through her. Sam, however, jumped out of bed and walked at Diana, glaring down at her.
You're not her. Where is she, Diana?
Diana looked up at him, tears rushing down my eyes as she gripped her neck. Sam, it's me! Stop it! Sam quickly lifted his foot, causing Diana to flinch and covering herself with her hands over her head, bracing for impact. While I expected Sam to fall for Diana's trick at the sight of my weakness, he let the kick he was charging up fly into Diana's stomach, slamming her against the wall. He didn't stop, however, slamming his foot again into her, rebounding her against the wall like a soccer ball. Gah!
Where is she?
My body began to quake at the sight of Sam kicking Diana, who very much continued to act like me, despite the barrage of pain Sam was inflicting on her. This was messed up and wrong. Why was Diana doing this? Why was she letting this happen?
She is following my instructions as I demanded.
Fuck your directions. I began to grow fearful of Sam, instinctively placing myself in Diana's place. It was only natural since she was acting like me right now. I began to grow fearful of Sam, instinctively placing myself in Diana's place. It was only natural since she was acting like me right now. Deep in my heart, I knew Sam would never do this to me. But the fear began to fester at the sight of him beating down on an image of me.
Fear not, child. He knows very well who he is attacking. I can hear his heart crying as yours is now.
What do you mean?
He despises doing this, but you have become the priority over the illusion. He pretends to see the succubus as she really is, as he tries to get his answer. A truly interesting demon.
I shut my eyes. Diana was doing a job, and Sam obviously saw through it. He wasn't attacking me. He was attacking Diana for tricking him and assuming she was hiding me from him. I only opened my eyes again to see Sam lift Diana by the throat and pin her to the wall, forming a sword in his free hand and lining the tip between her eyes. Even with the blade mere inches away from her face, Diana continued the act, crying and shaking in fear. Almaris!
I will kill you!
Within a blink, the hold on me vanished, and Sam flew back from Diana, releasing her and slamming into the far wall. I crumpled to the ground and quickly looked up to see Cero holding Diana close to his side, as his form emanated a holy white aura. His eyes burned intense. I crumpled to the ground and quickly looked up to see Cero holding Diana close to his side, as his form. I crumpled to the ground and quickly looked up to see Cero holding Diana close to his side as his form emanated a holy white aura. His eyes burned intense, deadly hatred as a white-tinged magical barrier surrounded his and Diana's bodies.
Enough!
Sam shook his head and jumped up, but at the sight of the real me, he instantly dropped his sword and tackled me, wrapping his arms around me and hugging me tightly.
Holy shit! You're okay!
Aw, that's so sweet. Sam! I stared into his shoulder, feeling him shake violently as he held me. My body couldn't help but shudder with him, feeling every ounce of his love as he gripped me tightly. He knew where his heart belonged, and it led him back to me, even with unbelievable odds attempting to sway him. I wrapped my arms around Sam and buried my face into his shoulder, nodding to him. I'm right here, Sam. Sam refused to let go, digging his fingers into my shirt and pulling me even closer still to his chest. I could feel his heartbeat pound against his chest as he pressed me against him. I, however, peeked over Sam's shoulder to see Diana shift back from my image to her own form, collapsing against Cero. With ease, Cero lifted Diana into his arms like she was a bride who had fainted, but continued to glare at the back of Sam's head. Finally, Sam lifted his head and looked at Cero, growing a glare of his own.
Tell that bitch to stay away from me if she wants to keep breathing.
I can hear you, brute.
Tell Sam the truth. Sam was completely right to be angry, but he had every right to want her to stay away from him. However, he also deserved to know the truth of why they did what they did. Sam, they had to. Sam looked at me with a confused look, mixed with anger, still emanating from his rage at Diana, no doubt. I gripped Sam's shoulders and forced him to fully face me. There's this voice that keeps saying you're being tested. It said that Diana and Seto were following its orders and testing you. I knew I was making little to no sense, but it was the truth of the matter. Sam had to believe me. His eyes continued to flood with confusion, making me worried.
She is telling the truth.
I didn't ask you, bitch!
She doesn't need your permission to speak, mutt.
Hey. He's my mutt. Sam closed his eyes and pressed his lips together, most likely taking in what they had said, before he glared at Seto and Diana.
Why?
Seto continued to glare at Sam in silence, but Diana lifted her head and looked to Sam from Seto's arms.
Because it said it will ensure our victory.
Sam raised an eyebrow, slowly starting to believe that this was a false reason, but I held his arm, looking to him in hope and earnest. Sam took a moment to look at me before sighing and shaking his head.
What said that?
Some powerful being. I don't know why, but I can feel that this being is more powerful than any of us.
Is that it?
Diana nodded and rested her head on Seto's chest, causing him to hug her body against him.
It won't speak its name, but we're certain we'll find out what it is.
Sam nodded before looking to the ground.
Can you go now?
Without another word, Seto walked out of the room with Diana, most likely to help her recover for the training day ahead.
I'm going to kick the shit out of him in training.
Vengeance! At last we were alone. I let out a sigh and wrapped my arms around Sam, laying my forehead against his shoulder. You okay?
No, I'm not. Whatever this thing that keeps testing me is, it got you involved.
Sam wrapped his arms around me and buried his head in my hair, letting out an aggravated sigh.
I'm sorry. Diana was pretending to be you, and I just...
I could hear the regret in his voice, slightly breaking my heart. I knew deep down that he would never hurt me, and that he was just trying to find me. I was wise enough to know the reason for his anger. It's okay, Sam. Sam was distraught, and I needed to ease his worries. I understood him perfectly. I hugged Sam to me and kissed his cheek as he trembled in my arms. He wrapped his arms back around me. I hugged Sam to me and kissed his cheek as he trembled in my arms. He wrapped his arms back around me and simply let silence pass between us.
What the fuck is going on?
I didn't know what to say, so I simply held him until it was time to train.